Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you grew up like I did before there were streaming platforms, you had cable TV and watched a lot of reruns of 70s, 80s, and 90s TV shows. Yes, I watched cartoons, but my mom showed me the classic shows like Bonanza, I Love Lucy, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, MASH, Roseanne, Full House, The Cosby Show, all those classic shows. But one show stood out the most to me, The Golden Girls. Now, while I loved Sophia, Blanche, and Rose, especially Rose, I love Rose, Dorothy was a whole being, and I never really understood her whole persona until I got older. Just like how I didn't understand Squidward until I got older. Next week will be 16 years since her passing. So today, let's talk about the woman behind the legend of Dorothy Zbornak, Bea Arthur. Let's get started. Born Bernice Frankel on May 13, 1922 in Brooklyn, New York, she was the middle of three sisters, Gertrude, the oldest, and Miriam, the youngest, born to parents Rebecca and Philip Frankel. Her parents were immigrants from Austria and Poland, so she was raised in the Jewish tradition. When Bernice was born, the Great Depression was seemingly nowhere in sight. The Roaring Twenties was in full swing, and Brooklyn was experiencing vast expansion and urbanization with streetcars, the Coney Island boardwalk, paved roads, diverse cultures, and the rise of industries like auto, iron, gas, and sugar refineries. So, Bernice's early years were comfortable, and during her childhood, she began asking to be called Bea because she wasn't the biggest fan of her name. When the Great Depression hit on Black Tuesday, October 29th, 1929, it plunged America and the world into a seemingly never-ending spiral of economic hardship. As a result, Bea's family moved to Cambridge, Maryland in 1933, where they opened a women's clothing store. Obviously, moving from anywhere to anywhere can be shocking, but moving from Brooklyn to Cambridge was a little more shocking to Bea, mainly due to the family being Jewish. At this point, Bea was cringingly shy and called herself a misfit. But around this time, her dream of wanting to be on the silver screen began to manifest. She spent hours reading movie magazines and perfected her Mae West impression, which impressed her friends and school, which eventually earned her the title of wittiest girl in her class. When Bea was 16, she was diagnosed with coagulopathy. I think I said that correctly. A serious medical condition that prevents the blood from clogging properly, meaning that if she cut herself, she can't stop bleeding. Her body wouldn't stop the bleeding itself, which, is a little bit concerning. Her rightfully concerned parents sent her to Lititz, Pennsylvania to attend the Linden Hall School for Girls, a boarding school where she completed her final 2 years of high school. After graduation, Bea moved to Virginia to attend Blackstone College for Girls, a 2-year all-girls private religious college where she studied to become a clinical laboratory technician. She stayed for only a year before returning to New York, where she struggled to support herself, working at Phillips Packing Company as a food analyst, testing products for mold and bacteria. On February 13, 1942, during the height of World War II, the United States Marine Corps established the Women's Reservists, becoming the last branch of the military to accept women into its ranks. This delay was due to many factors, most notably the Marine Corps' absolute refusal, capital letters, to be anything else but an exclusive club for white men. However, as casualties and pressure mounted during the war, their hands were tied. More men were needed overseas for combat, yet the Corps needed people for simple administrative jobs back home. So with that very large conundrum, with the most simple, solvable problem you could possibly think of, on July 30th, 1942, then President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Public Law 689, also called the Navy Bill, which established a women's reserve into the Navy and Marine Corps. And in turn, this allowed women into the Corps was signed, and the call went out to all women across America. Quote, "Be a Marine, free a Marine to fight" became the official slogan of the U.S. Marine Corps' Women's Reserve, encouraging women to join and release men for combat duties. Just 5 days after the Marines began accepting women, Bea was one of the first to answer that call, enlisting at the age of 20. Bea explained her decision to enlist in a letter. Quote, "I soon realized that I didn't care for lab work at all. So I came to New York and got a job doing office work for a loan company. The work was pleasant, but I didn't make enough to support myself. So Monday, the 15th, I left and found another job at Sperry's as an inspector. I was supposed to start work yesterday, but I heard last week that establishment for women in the Marines was opened. So I decided the only thing to do was join." After completing boot camp, now Private Frankel, I want to call her Franklin, Private Frankel first worked as a typist in Washington, D.C. before accepting a transfer to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina in June 1943, hoping she would be, quote, "of more value to the Marine Corps in this duty because of past experience." At Camp Lejeune, she reported to the Motor Transport School, where she was one of 2 women promoted to corporal the following month. By December 1943, she and 11 other women were promoted to sergeant. From 1944 to 1945, Bea was a member of the Aviation Women's Reserve Squadron 17 at Cherry Point, North Carolina, working as a truck driver and dispatcher. During this time, she met fellow Marine Robert Allen Arthur, whom she later married in 1945. Bea was promoted once again, this time to staff sergeant, around the same time. Later that year, on September 26, 1945, Bea was honorably discharged from the Marines. In her discharge papers, she stated her desire to leave the service to attend drama school. Back in civilian life, Bea attended the Franklin School of Science and Art in Philadelphia, where she earned her medical technician license. She worked for the summer interning at a local hospital until around 1947, when she decided, "This is boring," left that job and moved to New York City to enroll at the School of Drama at the New School. During this period, she and her husband Robert divorced in 1950. At the New School's dramatic workshop, she studied under German theater director and producer Erwin Piscator, who was known for his expressionist style of acting. Basically, the actor puts their whole body into the roles with very expressive and bold mannerisms. She became a member of an off-Broadway theater group at the Cherry Lane Theater, the oldest continually running off-Broadway theater in New York City. Off-Broadway basically means it's a professional Broadway production, but the seating is between 100 and 499 compared to the 500 plus seats and massiveness of traditional Broadway shows. While at this theater, she met and fell in love with fellow classmate Gene Sachs, and they married on May 28, 1950, though she kept the last name of Arthur and officially began using her stage name, Bea Arthur. By the summer of 1950, Bea was cast in many plays, such as Taming of the Shrew and, I'm going to see if I can say this correctly, Clytemnestra. That's a weird looking word. That same year, she and Gene adopted 2 sons, Matthew and Daniel. Bea's big break came in 1954 when she was cast in the lead role of Lucy Brown in the English adaptation of the German play, The Threepenny Opera. Her wit and comedic timing was on full display in this production and its many songs. The following year, in 1955, she appeared in Shoestring Review, where Norman Lear, who would become her lifelong friend and professional supporter, discovered her. Besides performing on stage, Bea sang in nightclubs and occasionally worked on TV shows like Kraft Television Theater.
Oh, well, I'm not one of those stage mothers who interferes. I believe in sitting back and keeping my distance.
By the 1960s, Bea had firmly established herself in the New York theater world. In 1964, she landed another massive hit role as Yenta the Matchmaker in Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway. According to castmates, directors, and critics, Bea made this role hers. She owned the role of Yente, and it's from this role and the whole production that Fiddler on the Roof has become one of the most successful musicals of all time, winning 9 Tony Awards and running for over 3,000 shows. I actually had to be reminded of this show, not because I saw it on Broadway, but because I remember watching the 3 freaking VHS tapes it took to watch the 3-hour-long thing, and boy, I hate that movie. In 1966, Bea played the supporting role of Vera Charles in the musical Mame, which her husband directed. This role cemented her place in Broadway royalty, and she won Best Featuring Actress in a Musical at the 1966 Tony Awards. Through this production, Bea and Angelina Lansbury, who played the lead role in Mame, became very close and lifelong friends. They later decided to work together in a new musical adaptation of a book called A Mother's Kiss. Bea played the leading role, but unfortunately the musical was just a complete flop. Just wasn't the best showcase of Bea's talents or a successful adaptation of the book. After this disappointment, Bea took a break for a few years. By 1971, Bea was living in New York and just kind of existing. She visited her husband in Los Angeles, where he was directing a movie, and while there, she ran into Norman Lear, who persuaded her to get back to work. He invited her to be a guest star on his newly developed sitcom, All in the Family, as Maude Findlay, the cousin of the main character's wife.
Maude!
Edith!
Wait a minute! Didn't you get my telegram telling you to stay the hell away from here?
Of course I got your telegram telling me to stay the hell away from here. Edith, honey, lamb, you can rest easy now. Maude is here.
Oh, gee.
Before I continue this part of Bea's story, there are 2 massive things you need to know. 1, the main character of the story, Archie Bunker, was described as a lovable bigot who was not shy about sharing his very narrow-minded views on anything and everything. And 2, Bea was a long-time loud champion of equal rights for women and a huge advocate for the elderly and Jewish communities. With this, her role as Maude was Archie's liberal foe with an equally sharp wit to match his. Bea was such a hit with her performance as Maude that she caught the attention of TV executives at CBS who, as Bea later recalled, asked, "Who's that girl? Let's give her her own series." CBS asked Norman to create a show with Bea as the main character. That character, Maude, and the show, Maude, later described accepting the role, quote, "It was a difficult decision to make, meaning whether I even wanted to do a series. And it was even more difficult when it was decided that Maude would be shot in Hollywood rather than in New York. But Maude has such an appeal for me that I couldn't turn her down." Maude was a spin-off of All in the Family that focused on the hit character Maude Findlay as she navigated many social and personal challenges. They moved to LA in 1972 to shoot the show, and Maude debuted on September 12th, 1972, and it was a hit. Quote, "I think Maude's appeal is that she is a real person. She's over 40, she's big, and she's what I am, as opposed to many of the women in situation comedies who are beautiful, sweet, and charming at all times." Many news articles mainly focused on the difference between Bea and Maude. For example, Bea was Jewish, while Maude was considered an atheist. And for some reason, that really fascinated people. The character of Maude, along with the new publication of the magazine Miss, became part of the so-called second wave feminism movement that began in the early 1960s and lasted about 20 years. Fun fact, in 1960, the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, approved the use of birth control, and this, plus a crap ton of other men and sexual things, was the catalyst for the second wave. Speaking of birth control, the show was already different, with it being considered a comedy with sprinkles of dark humor, drama, and controversy. The show dealt with modern socio-political topics that were considered taboo for TV sitcoms at the time. They dealt with the Nixon administration, drug abuse, alcoholism, divorce, menopause, the Vietnam War, mental illness, spousal abuse, gay rights, women's rights, and abortion, which would become the series' most controversial episode. Called Maude's Dilemma, Maude grapples with an unexpected late-life pregnancy and ultimately deciding to have an abortion.
I'm pregnant.
You're kidding.
The two-part episode aired around Thanksgiving 1972. At this time, only New York, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Alaska, and Washington State had legalized abortion, while it remained illegal in many of all the other parts of the country and was still a taboo subject to bring up in any platform. When the episode aired, it exploded with controversy. And as a result, dozens of networks refused to broadcast it. And notably, and I have no idea, this is not a coincidence. It aired just 2 months before the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion with Roe v. Wade in January 1973. I don't call that a coincidence. CBS decided to rerun the episodes in August of that same year after the uproar had died down a bit, and plus, you can't do anything about it now. This episode received massive ratings at the time and remains unmatched, not only for how it tackled the topic, but for the real emotions that surrounded the decision.
Just tell me, Walter, that I'm doing the right thing. Not having the baby.
For you, Maude, for me. In the privacy of our own lives, you're doing the right thing.
I love you, Walter Finley.
And the show firmly placed Bea in the herstory of the women's liberation movement. Maude earned Bea several Golden Globe and Emmy nominations, with her finally winning Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series at the 1977 Emmys for the 5th season. The show ran for 6 seasons with 141 episodes, ending when Bea decided to leave. Quote, "I adore Maude. I have some of her qualities. I may not be as politically active, but if something bugs me and I feel something needs attention, I give it. I'm very vocal about things that move me." Backing up to 1974, while Bea was filming Maude, she brought her famous Broadway character Vera Charles back to life in the film adaptation of Mame, with Lucille Ball as the main character. Her husband once again directed this production. However, if you've ever seen Lucille Ball's massive comedy TV hit series I Love Lucy, you know that Lucille is not the singing and dancing queen the main character of Mame needs it to be. Lucille can't sing. She was nothing like Angelina as Mame. Due to this, the movie was a flop. To put it kindly, the movie was a flop. And though Bea described Lucille Ball as charming and wonderful to work with, it was clear that Lucille herself felt she wasn't right for the part. From that point on, Bea kinda bobbed around TV land for a bit. In late 1978, Bea performed a song in the Star Wars Holiday Special. Oh, it's cringe. It's fun, but it's cringe. But unfortunately, she and her husband Gene divorced that same year. On January 19th, 1980, she hosted the Bea Arthur Special, which was basically a musical version of SNL. She appeared in 10 of 13 episodes of the short-lived 1983 sitcom Amanda's. After that, she found herself once again in limbo and eventually grew restless, wanting to get back on TV. So she began looking for new projects. And boy, would one find her in 1985, and it would change her entire life. On September 14th, 1985, the first episode of The Golden Girls aired on NBC. The premise was simple. It followed 4 older women, Blanche Devereaux, Rosen Island, Sophia Petrillo, and Dorothy Zbornak, living together in Miami, Florida, living out their golden years through humor, friendship, gossip, and occasional chaos. Now, I cannot express to you how much I love this stupid show. I've watched every episode of every season. I know way too many lines by heart, and Rose is my spirit animal. If any of you want to know how my brain functions, watch clips of Rose. That is how my brain functions. The show was created by Susan Harris and actually began as a skit performed by Doris Roberts and Selima Diamond. Their performance was inspired by an upcoming NBC show called Miami Vice. They pitched the idea of a show called Miami Nice, featuring retirees playing cards in a Florida community during a network presentation where NBC exclusive were reviewing potential new TV show ideas. The NBC execs loved the premise, and the show morphed into a series about 4 women sharing a home in Miami. However, the name Miami Nice just wasn't quite right for what the series had become, and they eventually settled on a new title: The Golden Girls. Now, Susan created the character of Dorothy with a Bea Arthur type in mind, but the person originally they envisioned to play the role was Elaine Stritch, but reportedly she blew her audition. Susan just had a gut feeling that Bea would be perfect for this role. I mean, she did create Dorothy with Bea in mind, but she was under the impression that Bea wasn't interested in the show. So Susan asked Rue McClanahan, who was at this point cast to play Rose while Betty White was cast to play Blanche, to see if she could persuade Bea to take the role. The two of them had worked together on Maude, so they already had a rapport. Bea wasn't swayed at first, telling Rue, quote, "Rue, I'm not interested in playing Maude, and Vivian meets Sue Ann Nivens." However, she began to reconsider when Rue and Betty switched roles. Quote, "When I was first sent the script for the plot of The Golden Girls, I fell in love with it. It was so bright, so witty, so adult. But it never really dawned on me it was about these older women. Apparently, it was presented to a number of producers and they turned it down. Who cares about older women? I guess it was revolutionary because it was the first time older women were shown in an atmosphere where they were well-groomed, well-dressed, had active sex lives. Prior to that, when old people were shown on television, you could almost smell them." Bea felt that the character of Dorothy resonated with her the most out of the 4. I mean, again, Dorothy was created with Bea in mind, so yeah, it resonated with her. I don't know why that is so hard to understand. And she felt that she could really bring Dorothy Zbornak to life and make her her own. And boy, did she ever. The show was a massive, instant hit all over the world and remained in the top 10 ratings for 6 of its 7 seasons. The show dealt with all the controversies, everything from elder care, same-sex marriage, discrimination in all the ways, adultery, death, menopause. The show was so beloved, and this blew my mind, that Queen Elizabeth's mother, Elizabeth Bowes-Leon, aka Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, was a huge fan of the show and requested the cast to perform several live skits as their characters in front of her and other royal family members in London at the 1988 Royal Variety Performance, basically a charity talent show.
Ma, it's getting awful late. Would you like us to drop you off at the hotel?
Hey, just because you're over 80 doesn't mean you can't go out on the town at night. Just ask that fine-looking lady up there in the expensive seat.
The show's tremendous success, outstanding performances, and brilliant script writing earned it several awards, including 3 Golden Globe Awards for Best Television Series, Musical, or Comedy, and 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Comedy Series. Bea beautifully, expertly, infuriatingly, wonderfully portrayed the sharp-witted divorced mother and substitute teacher Dorothy Zbornak. And if you know anything about Dorothy, it's that her face told everything she was thinking, and she had a strong personality and could slam a door pretty dang good.
Hi, it was real. Always could slam a door. That's one of the things I love about you.
You flatter me.
Dorothy's iconic, looser-fitting clothes were actually a preference from Bea's own wardrobe, and she wore flats and sandals so much because she hated wearing heels. This was a look she had created and enjoyed from her time playing Maude. Most of her costumes were custom-made, most because at the time finding flattering clothes in stores for a taller woman was hard. Trust me, I'm a lengthy girl. I may not be tall, but finding things that are not made for women 5'7" and under that can fit all the way on the legs is hard. Speaking of height, many jokes aimed at Dorothy were about how tall she was for years. And I mean years. I thought Dorothy was like 6 feet tall. But from researching this, I found out that she's only 5'10". She's an inch taller than me. Granted, like me, she's a lengthy 5'10", and to her credit, her castmates were all shorter than her. Rue, who played Blanche, was 5'3", Betty, who played Rose, was 5'4", and Estelle, who played Sophia, who was actually the second youngest cast member, but played the oldest of the characters. They just maked up the heck out of her. It took them like 3 hours to do her makeup, and boy is it brilliant looking, was 4'11". So yeah, Dorothy is a giant compared to the others. I literally found a Reddit thread about people being shocked Dorothy is only 5'10". And yes, there is a Reddit page dedicated to fans of the Golden Girls. And yes, I am a part of that Reddit page. And no, I am not ashamed of it. Thug life for life, bro. Before I move on, there is a cult-level fan base and love for the Golden Girls, especially amongst millennials and younger generations. It is so popular that Loungefly, an adult Disney and pop culture bag brand, made backpacks of all 4 girls. They are amazing, and my mom is amazing because she got me the Sophia backpack. She is next in my many Loungefly backpack bag rotation. Anyway, just to show you how much of a fan I am of them. Along with the Emmys the show itself won, all 4 of the girls won Emmy Awards, making it one of only 4 sitcoms in Emmy history to achieve this feat. Bea finally won hers after several tries at the 1988 Emmys. While on the show, Bea had ups and downs with fellow castmates and the production. Interestingly, and somewhat ironically, one of the signatures of the Golden Girls was their cheesecake eating scenes. Yet Bea actually hated cheesecake. The chemistry between Bea and Estelle, who played Dorothy's mother, was just as strong off camera as it was on screen. According to Estelle on working with Bea, quote, "Bea cracks me up the same way that I crack her up. She is one of the brilliant comedic minds of our day. She's just that good. I love Bea Arthur like she was my own daughter. I think of Bea very often in a very maternal way." Bea said about working with Estelle and on the show, quote, "The characters of Dorothy and her mother, played by me and Estelle, I think was one of the great comedic duos that has ever been done. I think it ranks up there with Laurel and Hardy. The absurdity of the love-hate relationship, the difference in size, it was brilliant. The writers were so brilliant. It was a joy coming to work every day. Everyone connected with Golden Girls was not a genius, but damn close to it, including our costume designer. I remember one of my favorite episodes was when Sophia had entered the 2 of us in a mother-daughter beauty contest at Shady Pines, and for the talent section, we did Sony and Cher's I Got You Babe. And I remember Judy Evans, this brilliant costumer, had little Estelle in it was kind of a furry jacket with a mustache, and I had black hair down to my behind. It was fabulous. Every day was so meaningful. Love that episode.
Babe. I got you, babe. I got you, babe.
However, Bea found Betty White a little more annoying.
Whatever happened to her? She colonized life on Venus.
Bea's son, Matthew, later said about the tension between the two women, saying his mom, quote, unknowingly carried the attitude that it was fun to have somebody to be angry at. It was almost like Betty became her nemesis, someone she could always roll her eyes about at work. Bea mainly disliked Betty for breaking the fourth wall, talking directly to the camera. It's what Deadpool does all the time, and Bea saw it as unprofessional. Given Bea's classical acting training, Betty's quirky humor got on her nerves. In 2011, Betty said that she believed that her positive attitude and perkiness got on Bea's nerves. That's such a typical Betty White thing. And clearly the tension between them also shows on camera, on the screen. Oh, sometimes Rose would get on Dorothy's nerves. And it makes so much sense that Betty would get on Bea's nerves off camera, just as the way it did between Dorothy and Rose.
I call him Scotty. Now you can call him garbage.
Another frustration Bea had with the show was the abundance of jokes about Dorothy's appearance. This grueling clip, for example.
Yes, but the chain leads the eye even lower to that huge spare tire. Jutting out over those square, manly hips.
Why don't I just wear a sign that says too ugly to live?
Like, damn. She became so dissatisfied that after just 3 seasons, she threatened to quit unless the scripts changed to include fewer appearance-based jokes. Fortunately, thank God, the writers adjusted and Bea remained with the show. Can you imagine somebody else playing Dorothy? During the 6th season, uncertainty came about whether Bea would renew her contract or leave the show once her contract expired. By this time, Bea felt that the characters had been in every possible scenario and wanted the show to end on a high note. Plus, she was just ready to move on. She committed to the 7th and final season of The Golden Girls, with the finale airing on May 9th, 1992, with an hour-long season finale that was watched by 27.2 million people. And to this day, it still ranks as the 18th most watched TV finale of all time, with the season finale of MASH holding the top spot at 105 million viewers. When the show ended, Bea kept a low profile, only appearing in 2 movies, For Better or Worse in 1995 and Enemies of Laughter in 2000, which would be her final film role. She made guest appearances in a few TV shows, including voicing Fempeter on Futurama in 2001. I never watched Futurama. I never got Futurama, so correct me if I said that wrong. She appeared in the first episode of Malcolm in the Middle and played Larry David's mother on Curb Your Enthusiasm, earning an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Comedy Series.
Died, I missed your funeral.
So what? What's so important? Why were you so happy when you thought you were adopted? That's what I want to know.
I wasn't happy.
Oh, don't give me that. You were very happy.
I was not happy.
Absolutely giddy.
Bea returned to Broadway, starring in Bea Arthur on Broadway, Just Between Friends, a show based on her life and career. The show was nominated in the short-lived category of Best Special Theatrical Event at the 2002 Tony Awards. She participated in various stage and TV tributes and participated in the 2005 Comedy Central roast of Pamela Anderson. In 2003, Bea reunited with Betty and Rue for the Golden Girls reunion special on the Lifetime channel. Estelle wasn't there because she was ill. The 3 of them made several appearances together to promote the DVD releases of the show. I have all 7 of the DVD collections of the Golden Girls. Being a strong gay rights advocate, Bea became involved with LGBTQ+ youth homelessness and raised $40,000 for the Alley 40 Center, the largest LGBT community center helping homeless LGBTQ youth in the US. I'm so used to saying LGBTQ+ or just LGBTQ. I have not said LGBT, just that, in a while. She raised these funds in one of her final live performances in 2005 after being diagnosed with cancer. She advocated for the center until her death, saying, quote, "These kids at the Alley 40 Center are literally dumped by their families because they are lesbian, gay, or transgender. This organization really is saving lives." The three actresses made their last appearance together at the 2008 TV Land Awards, where they received a standing ovation while accepting the Pop Culture Award. Also in 2008, Bea attended her induction into the Academy of Television Arts and Science Television Hall of Fame, which would be one of her last public appearances. Beatrice Bea Arthur died on April 25, 2009 at her home in Los Angeles, California of lung cancer, surrounded by her family at the age of 86. News of her death rippled throughout TV and Broadway communities. On April 28, 2009, Broadway paid tribute to Bea by dimming the marquees of New York City's Broadway Theater District in her memory at 8 p.m. for 1 minute. On September 16, 2009, the Majestic Theater in Manhattan hosted a public tribute to Bea, where friends and colleagues honored her memory. In her will, Bea left $300,000 to the Ali Forney Center. She was survived by her 2 adopted sons and 2 grandchildren. In 2017, a partnership between the Ali Center and the Cooper Square Committee renovated and opened the Bea Arthur Residence for homeless LGBT youth. This residence became the first group transitional housing building for LGBTQ homeless youth financed by New York City's Housing Prevention and Development, or HPD. The residence offers 18 beds and residents can stay for up to 2 years. While Bea's main claim to fame is the Golden Girls, she was more than just a tall woman with a husky voice, sharp wit, and unmatched humor. Friends described her as an introverted homebody who loved her sons, dogs, and cooking. She loved animals and was a passionate animal rights advocate throughout her life. She was known for working with PETA and was an honorary director and work with In Defense of Animals. The organization even established an annual award in her name, the Bea Arthur Award. Though she wasn't deeply invested in the celebrity world, she became a legend nonetheless. Yes, a recent book alleges Bea called Betty White two-faced in an Entertainment Weekly article featuring Gilmore Girls star Sally Struthers claimed that Bea would trash talk about anybody during their supermarket trips. However, I would argue we know Bea Arthur through Dorothy Zbornak. Again, Dorothy was created in Bea's image, and according to those who knew her, Dorothy and Bea were one and the same. Bea was just more introverted, but just as brutally honest. Whether you first met her on Broadway, in Maude, or on The Golden Girls, Bea remains a household legend who has solidified her name in television and Broadway herstory. There you go, everybody. The story of the legendary person behind the legendary Dorothy Zbornak. If you learned something today, and I sure hope you did, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And while down there, please leave a friendly comment. Before I go, in my research, I came across a few articles that showed in March of this year, amid Donald Trump's ridiculous DEI rewriting and retelling of anything and everything not related to white straight men, the Department of Defense deleted Bea Arthur's page on her contributions to the Marine Corps. Like, I'm talking complete 404 page not found level deleted. Now, it was restored several days later. Point is, it was deleted in the first place. Now, I used the U.S. Department of Defense page about her military career for this research, and to find out that not even 2 to 3 weeks ago, it had simply just vanished just because she was a woman that was included in the early history of women in the Marine Corps, I needed to take a really deep breath. Also, I came across a couple of other national federal sites that had some of its pages about women removed. This brings me to my point. With the Trump administration taking a chainsaw axe, wearing a cheese hat to anything and everything women related, from removing Harriet Tubman's incredible contributions to slavery, to rewriting what the Underground Railroad was actually used for, to erasing small yet significant chapters in a simple person like Bea Arthur's life story, I'm taking a stand. For however long this assault against erasing women's contribution to American history from American history continues, this channel will continue to be dedicated to making sure every woman's story from every background story is told. Yes, my channel's name is a play on the word history, but this channel also tells her story. And I will continue to do that because every woman of every background, ethnicity, race, and religion built this country just as much as straight white men did. If not, as I've been providing exuberant amounts of evidence for, more and better. See you next time, gals and guys.